Hey guys, it's Tyken here. I'm back with another video for you, so let's dive right in. Oh, and don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment. Let me know which manhwa you want to see next. Let's go! Tengda Corporation dominated the global stage, a multi-billion-dollar empire built on games and technology. In just a few years, its market value surpassed unimaginable milestones. The world watched with fascination. Cameras and journalists swarmed, desperate to capture any movement of that industrial phenomenon. At the center of the spotlight, a solitary figure took to the stage. Before a massive audience, he prepared to give a speech. The press sought answers for so much success. A reporter questioned whether that meteoric rise was the result of pure luck. The man approached the microphone. His expression was serious, about to reveal a truth that no one expected. He confessed that his original intention was never profit. His true goal, ironically, was to lose 50,000. The scene changed drastically, returning to the year 2009. At Handong University, the reality was very different from that grand future. The tranquility of the dormitory was suddenly shattered. Someone burst into the room urgently, shouting a warning. The young man awoke dazed. His eyes opened with difficulty, trying to focus amidst the sudden confusion. A familiar face appeared inches from his, startling him deeply. The shock of the abrupt awakening made him recoil instinctively. The colleague warned about an imminent inspection and ran off to save himself. The young man was left behind, still sitting on the bed, trying to understand the situation. Pei Chen put his hand to his head, feeling disoriented. At 19 years old, he seemed to find his own body and the surrounding environment strange. Upon observing the room, it dawned on him. That was his old dormitory, and the details confirmed the impossible. He had returned 10 years into the past. Incredulous, Pei Chen pinched his own face hard. He desperately needed to know if this was a dream or reality. The pain was real and immediate. The shock paralyzed his senses as he confirmed that he was, in fact, living a second chance. A holographic interface suddenly appeared on the ceiling. The mysterious wealth conversion system announced that it was initiating the process of linking to its new host. The young man touched his head, dazed by the light and the sudden information. Before he could react, the notification confirmed that the connection had been successfully established. The system displayed Pei Chen's data. He immediately noticed the absurd discrepancy between the huge initial capital offered and his meager personal assets while the status was being calculated. The rules were presented. The system would provide funds periodically for business activities, and the result of these operations would be converted to his personal account at the end of each cycle. Pei Chen let out a nervous laugh as cold sweat dripped down. He tried to process the implications of those rules and how this would affect his life from now on. It was then that he saw the conversion rates. If the company made a profit, the personal return would be tiny. However, if he generated a loss, the conversion to his pocket would be total. The young man quickly did the math, realizing the inverse logic. Trying to succeed in business would result in mediocre gains for himself. A cunning expression took over his face as he understood the loophole. The path to true wealth was not business success, but absolute failure. Pei Chen felt invincible, envisioning a bright future. All he needed to do was ensure that his ventures were a complete financial disaster. With a plan in mind, he began to type furiously. He decided to register the company with the name Tengda, determined to make it sink under his leadership. The registration was completed instantly. The system reported that the first conversion calculation would occur in just 2 weeks, giving him a short deadline to act. Pei Chen sat on the bed, confident in the memories of the future he possessed. His strategy would be simple: avoid any industry that had a guarantee of success and profit. In his mind, he envisioned an internal conference. Several versions of himself gathered to debate what would be the worst possible decision to make. The gavel hit the table with authority. The internal deliberation was over, and the verdict on the first step was sealed. Without hesitation, Pei Chen raised his hand, ready to execute his idea. He already knew exactly which sector would be the perfect target to waste his initial capital. Pei Chen carefully analyzed the rules imposed by the system. He realized that all illegal activities were strictly prohibited, which severely limited his easy options for draining the funds. The young man felt cornered by the numerous restrictions. No real estate speculation, dubious investments, or buying cryptocurrencies. The system blocked any obvious shortcut to quick losses. Reflecting on his situation, he noted that this world did not differ much from his original reality. Technology had advanced a little faster, and copyright protection laws were noticeably stricter. With these variables in mind, the protagonist began to devise a new strategy. A confident smile appeared on his face as a promising idea took shape. Pei Qian found the perfect answer: game development. Considering the advanced technological environment and strict legal protection, this seemed to be the ideal industry for his purposes. The decision was made. He would dive headfirst into the world of games, envisioning various possibilities for projects that could sink the company quickly. His reasoning was solid. Developing games required immense capital and burned money quickly. Furthermore, any sudden change in market trends could lead a project to total bankruptcy. Pei Qian adjusted his glasses, convinced of his logic. It was a high-risk, high-expense sector, exactly the kind of unstable venture he needed to guarantee failure. More importantly, he possessed the memories of the next 10 years. The young man planned to use this knowledge not to succeed, but to deliberately avoid any genre or title that he knew would be successful in the future. With the target set, the protagonist pointed to the imaginary horizon, ready to begin his great undertaking of corporate sabotage. The plan was to use the system's funds to cover the exorbitant development costs, turning the company's capital into losses that would become his personal wealth. The final step would be to ensure that the entire budget was completely burned through. He needed to spend every available penny without generating any return. Pei Qian envisioned his future success. The hammer had fallen. The gaming industry would be the vehicle for his paradoxical fortune. A sense of anticipated triumph washed over him. In this new life, he would reach the top by following the opposite path of any sensible entrepreneur. With open arms to the sky, he celebrated his destiny. Pei Qian would become the richest man in the gaming world, all thanks to his unparalleled ability to lose money. Pei Qian sat in front of the computer, ready to begin executing his controlled bankruptcy plan. While browsing through development libraries, something on the screen caught his immediate attention. He found ready-made models in a game editor. They were generic scenery and vehicle assets, perfect for what he had in mind. A confident smile appeared on his face. He knew exactly how to use that to drain the system's funds quickly. Without hesitation, the young man began buying commercial use licenses. The truck model cost a small fortune from the budget. He continued spending recklessly, throwing more money at random resources to inflate production costs. However, upon observing the chaotic mix of purchased assets, Pei Qian felt that the project still seemed incomplete. His eyes narrowed with total focus. It lacked the crucial element that would make the experience truly disastrous. With renewed energy, he began to program frantically, piecing together the disparate parts into a functional executable. A short time later, the screen displayed the final result: a deserted road rendered in the game engine. Pei Qian grabbed the controller enthusiastically, eager to personally test the gameplay of that creation. The game started, and the vehicle moved forward on the digital road, but the physics seemed purposefully unstable. The difficulty, however, exceeded expectations. The protagonist was shocked at how punishing and broken the experience turned out to be. He struggled with the controls, questioning whether he had created a game or a psychological torture tool for players. Pei Qian leaned back in his chair, satisfied. A game so frustrating would never be successful, which would guarantee the perfect loss. The controller was thrown violently against the keyboard. That player's frustration reached its limit, resulting in a destructive impact on the table. Pei Qian smiled in the shadows, pleased with his own cunning. Knowing he had a terrible game on his hands, he concluded that commercial failure and financial loss were guaranteed. Meanwhile, in the Handong University dormitory, the night was still lively. Shouts echoed through the courtyard, demanding someone's immediate presence in a virtual battle. The tension rose through the walls of the building. Accusations flew high, blaming a teammate for wandering around the map instead of helping in the crucial fight. Inside the room, chaos reigned among the computers. While most of the group was focused, one of the young men was attempting the difficult task of playing and eating dinner at the same time. Ma Yang divided his attention between the instant noodles and the mouse. His lack of total focus on the match was clearly hurting the group's performance. The colleague next to him typed and clicked frantically, sweat running down his face. The panic in his expression made it clear that the situation in the match had gotten out of control. On the screen, the catastrophe came to fruition. The team's lack of coordination allowed the opponents to dominate the combat, turning the fight into a one-sided massacre. The result was humiliating for the group. Even with a numerical advantage, they were defeated, raising serious doubts about the tactical competence of those involved. The dreaded defeat screen appeared, sealing the fate of the match. All the effort and shouting resulted in just another bitter loss for their record. The roommate couldn't contain his indignation. He turned to the side, glaring at his friend and blaming his incompetence for the disaster. Ma Yang, still with his mouth full, reacted with surprise. He seemed genuinely not to understand the reason for so much hostility directed at his mediocre performance. The audacity of that innocence left the other player stunned. He seemed about to collapse, incredulous that his leadership was being questioned after such an obvious defeat. Ma Yang had always been like that, extremely serious about everything he did, but with only mediocre results. He was the classic jack of all trades, without being a master of anything. However, the player's resilience was admirable. Completely ignoring the frustration and offenses exchanged seconds before, the group decided to immediately start a new match. Pei Chen yawned deeply, feeling the weight of fatigue. He declared that they shouldn't count on him for anything else, as his only ambition at the moment was to sleep. The young man threw himself on the bed, completely surrendering to laziness. That was the well-deserved rest of someone who believed they had designed the perfect plan. In his daydreams, he already envisioned his future fortune. Pei Qian smiled as he imagined the amount he would receive from the system as soon as his game failed. Meanwhile, elsewhere, the excitement revolved around state-of-the-art hardware and expensive consoles. In a disorganized apartment in City was Chao Liang. He was a streamer for the Sweet Potato Network, known online as Professor Chow. The situation, however, was tense. Chao Liang was desperate, realizing that the bad games of that week would never attract a good audience to his channel. Seeking a moment of respite, he turned on the electric kettle. He needed something to calm his nerves while looking for a solution for his broadcast. Suddenly, a strange title caught his eye on the screen. It was a driving simulator on a deserted road that promised to make the player rethink their life choices. The streamer chewed his snack slowly, confused. He stared at the monitor, trying to understand what kind of digital aberration was before his eyes. The entry price was symbolic. For just $1, the game was available for immediate purchase. With a defiant smile, Chao Liang grabbed the controller. He was determined to find out how something so cheap could fulfill such a grand promise. The game started, and the disappointment was instant. The setting was a terrible rendering of a desert, with graphics that left much to be desired. The mechanics were no better. The streamer immediately noticed the stiffness of the controls as he tried to keep the truck on the straight track. The engine sound was a constant and monotonous hum. Chao Liang soon found himself questioning what he was doing, and what the purpose of that software was. His eyes widened as he understood the cruel truth. The game offered nothing more than an endless occurrence of solitary driving. Chao Liang was puzzled by the lack of progress. Even driving for a good while, the feeling of stagnation in the game was absolute. The silence and monotony began to affect him physically. He trembled, in disbelief at the total absence of events on the screen. Faced with the infinite and deserted road, an existential crisis set in. Without clear objectives, he began to question his own purpose there. Suddenly, the shock brought him back to reality. It was inconceivable to him that a game could be designed to be so still and lifeless. The streamer decided he needed an urgent break. He got up to prepare something to eat and recover his energy away from the screen. Before walking away, he pressed the pause button on the controller, hoping to freeze the action so as not to lose progress. To his utter disbelief, the game didn't stop. The discovery that there was no pause function left him furious and confused. With no one in command, the truck inevitably went off the road. The vehicle collided violently against the rocks at the roadside. The screen went dark immediately with the defeat message. All the time invested in those hours of driving had been lost in an instant. Instead of giving up, he let out a maniacal laugh while eating. The absurd challenge and the game's provocation awakened in him an obsessive determination. Meanwhile, day was breaking in the dormitories of Handong University, far from that virtual madness. A young man watched a video on the computer attentively. The narration explained the torture of keeping your eyes on the road for 8 hours straight. On the screen, the recording showed the suffering of streamer Chao Liang, trying to stay focused on the desert track of the Sweet Potato Network game. The climax of the video revealed the final message of the journey. The text ironically congratulated the player for wasting 8 hours of their life, provoking the streamer's fury. Pei Qian reacted with absolute shock upon seeing how the situation unfolded. This couldn't be happening. The young man grabbed his own head, desperate in front of the monitor. It wasn't just isolated players. The reaction of the viewers was creating an uncontrollable snowball. The internet went into a frenzy. Comments and discussions arose at an insane speed, spreading the game's fame throughout the network. Pei Qian tried to rationalize, wanting to shout to the world that the game was horrible and not worth the money. However, the irony of fate made the fans interpret the flaws as qualities, insisting on buying the product. The protagonist's soul almost left his body in the face of such insanity. He began to question his own sanity, as he realized that the world seemed to be conspiring against his desire to fail. Resigned to the accidental success provoked by the streamer, Pei Qian leaned back in his chair. All that remained was to check the wealth conversion system to assess the financial damage caused by the profits. The holographic interface confirmed his worst nightmare. The system's funds had skyrocketed, accumulating a capital that he never wanted to obtain. The shock was physical, like a blow to the stomach. The guaranteed personal fortune that he hoped to achieve through the loss had evaporated instantly with the sales success. Faced with the crisis, Pei Qian's mind entered a state of emergency. He visualized an internal conference between his various facets to deal with the disaster. The hammer banged on the imaginary table, demanding order in the mental chaos. The emergency meeting was declared open to analyze the personal loss. One of the internal personalities took the floor, still stunned, trying to process how everything had gone so wrong through success. The analytical part of his mind did the cold calculations. With the company's high profit, the system's conversion rate plummeted, resulting in an insignificant personal gain compared to what he would have had if he had failed. However, Pei Qian knew that crying over spilled milk was useless. He drank his tea, recovering his composure to focus on the future. The mental conference shifted the focus to the next strategy. They needed external help, someone capable of guaranteeing failure. A malicious smile appeared on his face as he had an epiphany. He knew the exact person for the job, someone whose natural incompetence was capable of destroying any project they touched. Ma Yang arrived at the door humming, cheerfully admitting that his only real skill was eating. He was bringing dinner, totally oblivious to the plans awaiting him on the other side. Pei Qian greeted him with exaggerated enthusiasm, treating his friend as if he were the most valuable person in the world. For his goals of losing money, Ma Yang's uselessness was exactly the treasure he needed. The protagonist's gaze shone with a predatory and calculating intensity. Ma Yang felt a chill down his spine and began to sweat, not understanding why he was being stared at in such a disturbing way. The newcomer scratched his head, completely stunned. The warm reception and the friend's manic look made no sense to him at that moment. Shortly after, the two joined the crowd at a local street restaurant. The atmosphere was noisy and lively, with toasts and conversations filling the night air. The grill was full of corn, sausages, and fish being prepared. The aroma of street food served as a backdrop for the strategy that was about to unfold. While Ma Yang devoured the chicken wings with relish, praising the food, Pei Qian just watched. The young entrepreneur analyzed his target silently, waiting for the right moment. The friend seemed to have no other concern in the world than to savor each piece. His simplicity and total focus on the food only confirmed Pei Qian's theory about his suitability for the job. Inside, however, Pei Qian was in agony. The memory of the unexpected profit and the loss of conversion of his personal funds was like a painful arrow in his chest, making him regret the 50,000 lost. The wealth conversion system displayed the merciless numbers in his mind. The company's funds had grown to 300,000, requiring a Herculean effort to be spent, while his personal assets remained pathetic. Oblivious to his friend's internal financial torment, Ma Yang continued to chatter about the taste of the chicken wings. His ignorance of the situation was a blessing in disguise. Pei Qian forced a radiant smile as he drank his soda, but tears of frustration streamed freely down his face. It was the bitter taste of unwanted success that he needed to swallow. Regaining his composure, the young man looked at the illuminated city and reflected. He needed to turn that pain into motivation to ensure that the next project was an absolute failure. Ma Yang, still focused on attacking the next skewer, did not notice the change in atmosphere. He was vulnerable and perfectly positioned to fall into his friend's trap. Ma Yang was paralyzed by the information he had just received. The mention of such a large amount of capital left him completely stunned, with the food forgotten in his hand. Pei Qian took advantage of his friend's shock to consolidate his lie. He quickly invented a story about generous family funding of 300,000 to justify his sudden wealth. Still skeptical, Ma Yang questioned whether his friend possessed any skills in design or programming. Without showing any shame, the protagonist cheerfully admitted that he knew absolutely nothing. The conversation suffered a brief pause, punctuated only by the metallic sound of a soda can being opened. The student stared at the drink in his hands, immersed in silence. Pei Qian's confession of total technical incompetence seemed to have made the atmosphere heavy. Pei Qian watched his friend's hesitation with growing anxiety. He interpreted that silence as an internal moral conflict and realized that he would need to try harder to convince him. The young entrepreneur cleared his throat, seeking to draw attention back to himself before the opportunity escaped. Meanwhile, Ma Yang just drank his soda calmly, completely oblivious to the strategic panic that consumed his companion's mind. Determined to impress once and for all, Pei Qian pointed to his own face with confidence. He prepared to reveal the truth about his professional identity. The revelation was so shocking that Ma Yang spat out his drink violently. The news caught him totally off guard, causing an immediate physical reaction. The student shouted in total disbelief. He finally connected the dots, realizing that Pei Qian was the creator of that infamous game that everyone was talking about. A mischievous and knowing smile appeared on Ma Yang's face. He seemed to have understood something fundamental about the nature of his friend's success. His mind traveled to the absurd mechanics of the game. He visualized the feeling of power and the comical effects that Pei Qian's creation provided to the players. Pei Qian, however, was visibly confused. Ma Yang's reaction and disjointed words made no sense to him at that moment. The protagonist touched his own chin, worried. Ma Yang's unpredictability made him question whether his recruitment plan was really going in the right direction. That night, the scene changed to the dormitory where the two students lived. The tranquility of the environment, however, was about to be interrupted. Pei Qian widened his eyes, incredulous. Ma Yang entered the room balancing a gigantic stack of books that almost touched the doorframe, leaving the protagonist shocked by the exaggeration. The selection of reading was, to say the least, peculiar. The top of the pile revealed manuals on how to deal with life outside of programming, suggesting that Ma Yang's priorities were a little distorted. Proudly, Ma Yang displayed his treasures. They were guides for beginners, but also books on how to avoid baldness and back pain. He seemed to believe that being a programmer involved more medical care than code. Pei Qian's expression darkened. He tried to argue that the biggest problems were not physical, but rather pressure and stress, reminding his friend that he didn't even know how to program yet. However, the young man quickly changed his strategy. He gave a thumbs up and smiled, deciding that encouraging that absurd distraction would be beneficial to his plans for failure. Ma Yang tried to read the technical content, but his confidence wavered. The lines of code looked like an alien language, and cold sweat began to run down his face. Realizing the difficulty, Pei Qian intervened immediately. He gestured, trying to calm his friend and perhaps prevent him from learning anything truly useful. Ma Yang stared at the book with intensity, frowning. There seemed to be an internal struggle between the will to learn and the total incomprehension of the material. The tension soon dissipated. Pei Qian applauded his friend's theoretical effort, and both laughed, sealing a tacit agreement that intention was worth more than competence. Recovering his spirits, Ma Yang raised the 4 Dummies book like a trophy. He announced with determination that he would memorize it all in the blink of an eye. Reality, however, was quite different. A short time later, while Pei Qian worked focused on the computer, Ma Yang was already sound asleep, using the book as a sleeping mask. Suddenly, Pei Qian stopped. He firmly supported his hands on the table, as if he had reached an important conclusion by observing the scene. The protagonist looked at his sleeping friend with comical tears in his eyes. He was genuinely moved, but not by Ma Yang's effort, but by his total and perfect uselessness. Pei Qian sighed, imagining an army of Ma Yang clones. He realized that this was a rare talent. If he could hire more people as unproductive as that, his mission to lose money would be an absolute success. Pei Qian mentally outlined a new loss plan. The goal was ambitious, to lose 3 million, and he already had a confident smile on his face. The idea involved creating a mobile version of a card game. The concept seemed simple, but it was just the beginning of his strategy. From the top bunk, Ma Yang commented on the market saturation. He noted that many companies were already investing in this type of game nowadays. Pei Qian, however, seemed excited about the lack of originality. He suggested using a ready-made model from the resource station, without adding anything new. While getting out of bed, Ma Yang argued that the Three Kingdoms theme was already a cliché. Just look at the ranking to see the repetition. Their imagination was filled with countless cute and generic versions of historical warriors. The competition in this niche was brutal and merciless. To prove his point with concrete data, the protagonist reached for his cell phone in his pocket. He showed the list of most popular games to his friend. As expected, the vast majority of titles recycled the same theme exhaustively. The device's screen confirmed the absolute saturation of the genre. There didn't seem to be room for another competitor like the others. However, Pei Qian smiled slyly. He revealed that the high competitiveness and lack of originality were exactly the reasons for his choice. Faced with the statistics, the young man concluded that launching a generic game in a crowded market would guarantee failure. His project would be obliterated by the competition, ensuring the desired loss. However, a strategic concern arose. There was a risk that players would act unpredictably in relation to what they said. The fear was that, even if it was a bad game, some whales, rich players, would spend fortunes, turning the planned loss into accidental profit. Pei Qian decided he needed to intervene. He metaphorically hammered it down, determined to prevent any chance of financial success. The solution found was counterintuitive. The young man proposed sabotaging his own monetization, creating barriers that prevented players from spending money, even if they wanted to. Pei Qian smiled confidently, extending his hand over the table. He felt he had total control of the situation. The young man explained that the strategy for this new project would be the absolute opposite of the mobile card games that dominated the market. Adjusting his glasses, he felt cunning. The idea was to subvert the industry's usual profit expectations. Pei Qian knew that, normally, rich players paid to gain overwhelming advantages over free users. However, while drinking his tea, he decided that he would eliminate this predatory dynamic to guarantee the game's financial failure. Enthusiastically, he detailed the plan. The game would have a negligible initial cost and severely limit internal purchases, preventing players from spending too much. In his imagination, he saw the frustrated whales, trying to spend money and being blocked by the system, which would certainly ruin the revenue. Pei Qian then showed Ma Yang the game model he had purchased. It was a basic skeleton with standard functions, without any innovative gameplay. Ma Yang was shocked by the price or the simplicity of what had been purchased, reacting with disbelief. The protagonist, on the other hand, seemed satisfied with the model's mediocrity. For him, the worse the base, the better the result. His eyes sparkled with determination. The plan to lose money was going exactly as he wanted. Ma Yang, however, pointed to the screen and noted that crucial elements were still missing, such as interface, combat effects, and card design. Scratching his head in doubt, his friend questioned what the available budget would be to cover all these necessary artistic resources. Pei Qian raised his hand, making a gesture to indicate the amount he was willing to sacrifice. With a dramatic slam on the table, he announced that he would invest all the remaining capital, 60,000, exclusively in art resources, to Ma Yang's astonishment. Pei Qian arranged the stack of papers firmly on the table. That document contained the key to the next phase of his development plan. He handed the bundle to Ma Yang, demanding immediate attention. His friend, caught by surprise by the sudden attitude, barely had time to react. The protagonist displayed the list of requirements with a satisfied smile. There were the names of famous historical figures that needed to be recreated for the game. Ma Yang wiped the sweat from his forehead, visibly nervous about the task. He admitted that his knowledge of the subject was superficial, limited to what he saw on television. Pei Qian held his colleague's shoulders to calm him down. He assured him that there was no reason to panic and that he trusted his ability for that mission. The student looked at the papers in his hands, still hesitant. The responsibility of defining the game's art seemed too heavy for someone inexperienced. The young man explained that Ma Yang didn't need to draw anything, just provide the ideas. The technical work would be done by contracted artists. He just needed to be creative. However, Pei Qian imposed an essential condition. The designs needed to be innovative and as outrageous as possible, which left Ma Yang stunned. Ma Yang began to test the limits with bizarre suggestions. For every strange idea that came up, Pei Qian responded with an immediate thumbs up. The friend suggested turning a historical general into a centaur. Pei Qian's approval was instantaneous, further encouraging that absurdity. Next, Ma Yang shouted from the bathroom asking if he could create a female draconic version of another warrior. The answer was a resounding yes. Excited, Ma Yang imagined a military strategist as a cute little girl with dragon horns. He presented the concept, hoping to see the boss's reaction. Pei Qian patted his friend on the shoulder enthusiastically, approving everything. That chaotic creativity was exactly what he needed to sink the project. In front of the computer, Pei Qian laughed as he imagined the visual result. That mixture of ridiculous concepts and historical figures would undoubtedly be a complete abomination. To make matters worse, he accessed a freelance website and decided to request a realistic art style. The combination of serious features with stupid designs would guarantee public hatred. Pei Qian analyzed the options on the computer screen. He was looking for something specific that aligned with his unconventional plans for the project. The young man found a cheap character model with a childish style. The generic art was exactly the kind of low-quality material he wanted. Satisfied with the mediocrity of the find, he pressed the key forcefully. The decision was made, and the purchase was confirmed immediately. As Pei Qian walked away with a smile of accomplishment, Ma Yang remained confused, scratching his head at the strangeness of that task. The protagonist could barely hide his malicious excitement. The plan to spend the budget inefficiently seemed to be working perfectly. Pei Qian imagined the fortune he would receive in exchange for the loss generated. Meanwhile, Ma Yang struggled to put the absurd demands on paper. Later, the scene changed to the Handong University cafeteria, where student life continued at its usual pace under the daylight. The cafeteria was bustling with students having lunch, the chosen location for an informal meeting on the progress of the game's development. Pei Qian carefully read the notes that Ma Yang had produced. The friend ate nervously, anxiously awaiting the verdict on his creative work. The young man smiled as he realized that the text completely ignored historical accuracy. It was exactly the narrative distortion he needed to guarantee failure. He gave a thumbs up, approving the content enthusiastically. Ma Yang had managed to create something totally disconnected from reality, to Pei Qian's delight. However, the conversation took an unexpected turn when Ma Yang, holding his food, seemed to have a sudden inspiration that he wanted to share. The friend began to describe an idea involving adding female characters with attractive silhouettes, aiming to increase the game's visual appeal. Pei Qian's expression instantly changed to pure shock. That suggestion represented a real danger of making the game popular and profitable. Panicked by the possibility of success, he stood up abruptly to interrupt Ma Yang. That idea needed to be discarded immediately. Ma Yang stopped eating, confused by his friend's sudden reaction. Pei Qian's logic seemed too intense for a simple lunch conversation. The protagonist quickly made up a technical excuse. He argued that turning all the characters into attractive women would cause them to lose their unique identity, making the game generic and bland. To ensure that the project continued on the path to failure, Pei Qian pointed to a specific concept on the paper. He needed to ensure that the design followed a visually questionable direction. The absurd explanation worked perfectly. Ma Yang nodded in agreement, returning to eating his noodles without suspecting that he was being manipulated to sabotage the game's aesthetics. With the bad concept approved, Pei Qian handed over the final notes. He instructed his friend to contact the artist immediately to formalize the bizarre request. Meanwhile, the scene changed to the other side of the city. The focus was now the art department dormitory at the university. Inside a cramped room, the routine of the art students continued. A group gathered around a work table, watching the computer screen intently. Ruan Guangjian, a talented art student, analyzed the client's request with strangeness. The demands that arrived were, at the very least, unusual for a standard project. He turned to his colleagues, incredulous at what he was reading. The request was so peculiar that he needed to express his surprise before proceeding. Without wasting time, Ruan typed a response in the chat interface. He needed to know the exact quantity and specific requirements before committing to the job. A digital connection was established between the two dormitories. On one side, the confused artist waited. On the other, the CEO who was planning his own bankruptcy prepared the response. Ruan Guangjian waited patiently, twirling the pen between his fingers. The uncertainty about the scale of the project made him anxious for the client's reply. Pei Qian didn't hesitate to increase the costs. With a confident smile, he made an extravagant request. He wanted 4 complete variations for each character, totaling hundreds of drawings. The artist was stunned to read the message. The volume of work requested was immense, far beyond what one would expect for a simple university project. Regaining his professional composure, Ruan accepted the challenge. He then stipulated his total price for the service, ready to close the deal. Pei Qian momentarily panicked. If he didn't increase spending now, he would never be able to burn through all the system's money in time. He needed to act fast to guarantee the loss. The young CEO turned his attention to the artist in front of him, ready to make an offer he couldn't refuse. Holding the documents, Pei Qian argued that the scale of the project would require a monumental effort, far beyond the conventional. He slammed his hands on the table firmly to emphasize his point. The negotiation needed to be aggressive, but not in the way the other expected. The protagonist raised 3 fingers. Considering the extra work involved, he suggested a payment 3 times higher than normal. Ruan Guangjian froze in shock. Instead of haggling for a discount, the client was voluntarily offering more money. It was a reverse negotiation. Ignoring the artist's surprise, Pei Qian continued to explain his vision with a welcoming smile, acting as if this generosity was standard. The art student felt like he'd been struck by lightning. This behavior defied all the market logic he knew. However, looking at the projected list of requirements, Ruan noticed something strange. The instructions were too vague, lacking crucial details for the job. Pei Qian just smiled and gestured, dismissing the concerns. He didn't want quality or precision. He just wanted the money to be spent. Ruan scratched his head, trying to process the situation. A client who paid a lot and demanded little was unheard of in his life. Without wasting time, Pei Qian formalized the agreement. He was radiant, as every penny spent there brought him closer to his goal of bankruptcy. The young man stretched in his chair, feeling the relief run through his body. The mission to waste the budget had been an absolute success. Later, in the dormitory, Ruan's reality was very different. He was sleeping, worried about his last emergency savings. But the new order changed everything. The artist suddenly woke up and shouted to his colleagues, announcing that they finally had guaranteed work. The roommates questioned the client's sanity. After all, Ruan's portfolio consisted only of cute drawings, exactly the opposite of what had been requested. Ruan, however, immediately rejected the criticism. For him, that contradictory demand was not madness, but a perceptive vision that he had been waiting for a long time. The student confessed that in fact he hated drawing in that childish style. He had only followed that aesthetic because that was what the mobile gaming market demanded at the time. Now, finally, he had the opportunity to demonstrate his true value. This was the chance to escape commercial trends and create something authentic. The focus would be on visual grandeur. Ruan immediately decided that the appearance of the characters would be the crucial factor in conveying the epic feeling that the client wanted. He adopted an oil painting style with heavy, dark strokes. The result was a monstrous and intimidating creature, far removed from the group's previous works. The colleagues analyzed the proposal with caution. Although games about the Three Kingdoms generally did not use that artistic style, the specific requirements of the contract changed the whole context. Ruan pulled his chair back to face his friends head-on. The time had come to define the final artistic direction of the project and convince the team. He summarized the concept simply and directly. The more the appearance of the characters deviated from the traditional human form, the better the result would be for the client. That list of requirements allowed for a complete overhaul. The idea was to subvert the classic image of historical heroes and transform them into something suitable for the new style. Despite the technical explanation, the team hesitated. The radical change in stroke seemed like a risky and perhaps too complex task for them to execute perfectly. Ruin, however, remained optimistic and smiled. He reassured his companions, reminding them that the financial risk of this venture did not fall on their shoulders. If the game failed and became unpopular, the loss would only be the clients. On the other hand, if the project was a success, they could establish themselves in the market. The logical argument convinced the group. With renewed motivation and realizing that they had much to gain and nothing to lose, they agreed to accept the challenge. Work began immediately in the dormitory. 3 weeks passed while the team dedicated themselves intensely to meet the stipulated deadline. Ruan Guangjian finalized the last stroke with the digital pen, feeling the weight of the hours of work. The monumental task was, at last, completed. Despite the deep dark circles denouncing his exhaustion, a smile of triumph lit up his face. He had managed to meet the impossible deadline. The dormitory looked like a battlefield, full of trash and passed-out bodies. His colleagues had collapsed as soon as the work marathon ended. Ruin scratched his head, realizing that he was the only survivor awake in that chaotic scenario. Silence reigned where there had once been creative frenzy. Leaning on the table to maintain his balance, he prepared for the final administrative step. All that remained was to send the product to the client. He typed the confirmation message and attached the 200 requested drawings. The fate of the project was now out of his hands. Meanwhile, daylight bathed the university dormitory building. The final deadline had also arrived for the other side of the negotiation. In his room, Pei Qian widened his eyes as he noticed the notification on the screen. The artwork had arrived punctually. The wealth conversion system displayed a relentless countdown. There were only 8 days left for the reckoning, and there were still funds to be spent. The young man quickly calculated his finances and obligations. He needed to find an urgent way to burn through all the remaining capital of the system before the deadline expired. While planning how to waste the money, the progress bar indicated that the art files were being downloaded. With a decisive click of the mouse, Pei Qian opened the folder. He was ready to confirm the low quality he had ordered. He watched the screen with expectation and curiosity. A confident smile formed, anticipating the visual disaster that would guarantee his game's failure. However, the image that was revealed was a magnificent and imposing illustration of Guan Yu. The art possessed a professional quality and an impressive dark aesthetic. Pei Qian's blood ran cold, and his expression twisted in absolute shock. This wasn't the garbage he expected. It was a masterpiece that threatened to ruin his bankruptcy plans. Pei Qian cursed internally. The situation had spiraled completely out of his control in a way he never expected. Shock was plastered on his face. The art received wasn't just acceptable, it was excellent, which meant absolute disaster for his loss-making plans. He frantically reviewed the files, but the conclusion was undeniable. All the drawings maintained a consistently high standard of quality. The young man put his hands to his head in total despair. With visuals of that level, his goal of intentionally failing was seriously threatened. In his mind, he immediately called an emergency meeting with himself to try and manage this unforeseen crisis. Canceling the contract was out of the question. The game needed to be released in 2 days, or the system would punish any delay in the financial settlement. One of his analytical facets tried to assess the damage, pondering how the players would react to this unexpected visual quality. Another part of him tried to stay calm, suggesting that maybe the rest of the game was still mediocre enough to guarantee failure. A containment strategy needed to be set up. They had to find a way to minimize the positive impact of that art. The plan was drawn. When submitting the game to the platform, they would use a name and description so simple and ridiculous that it would ward off any public interest. Back in reality, Ma Yang noticed his friend's fixed expression and approached, curious to see what was holding his attention so much. Upon seeing the character illustrations on the screen, Ma Yang was dumbfounded. The professional quality of the art was obvious and impactful even to him. Excited, Ma Yang began to brag, naively believing that his guidance on the project had revealed a hidden talent for art direction. Pei Qian just agreed with a forced smile. The launch was confirmed, guaranteeing his partner's joy and his own torment. Ma Yang continued to speak, radiant and full of positive expectations, completely oblivious to the strategic disaster that this represented for Pei Qian. Ma Yang announced the name of the game with pride, oblivious to how generic it sounded. He presented the project to his friends as if it were a great achievement. A lively toast sealed the meeting. The glasses clinked on the table full of food, celebrating the moment of relaxation. The group enjoyed the banquet sponsored by Pei Qian. The atmosphere was festive, with encouragement for everyone to enjoy the food and drink without ceremony. Curiosity, however, arose among the guests. One of the colleagues questioned the logistics of the launch, finding it strange how quickly everything seemed to have happened that afternoon. Ma Yang tried to maintain the pose of a carefree executive. With a confident smile, he admitted that he hadn't even asked about the release date, downplaying his own ignorance. The evasive answer brought a momentary silence to the table. The group was left speechless by the lack of concrete information coming from one of the creators. The silence was suddenly broken. The colleague with glasses, checking his cell phone, exclaimed in surprise that the game was already available, leaving Ma Yang stunned. The news mobilized everyone immediately. Dinner was set aside as everyone grabbed their phone to verify the information. The guy with glasses continued browsing, searching for the details on the platform. His expression soon transformed, showing a mixture of doubt and surprise. He stared at the screen, shocked. What he found there seemed to defy his initial expectations about his friend's amateur project. The question of price came up. Upon noticing that the game cost 10 yuans, he questioned the group, doubting that anyone had actually spent money on it. However, loyalty spoke louder. Another friend firmly announced that he had already bought the game, insisting that it was necessary to check the result of their hard work. Pei Qian, in turn, remained calm. While eating, he checked his own device, resigned to seeing how the planned disaster was unfolding. On the screen, the game ran perfectly. The summoning sequence displayed cards of generals with vibrant and detailed illustrations, contradicting the protagonist's desire for mediocrity. The colleague held his cell phone, visibly impressed. The quality of the final product was there, before his eyes, ready to be judged. Another student checked his own device, confirming the discovery. He also seemed surprised to find the game available so suddenly. The young man next to him displayed his cell phone screen with enthusiasm. The icons and character art were visible, impressing the group with the visual quality of the final product. However, something in the game's mechanics caused strangeness. The long-haired student scratched his head, visibly confused by what he found while browsing the menus. The surprise soon turned to shock. One of the guys shouted upon realizing that the game store only sold a single permanent membership item for a paltry price. As dinner progressed, the group debated the usefulness of that item. They found the daily bonus insignificant, questioning the logic of a system that seemed to discourage real spending. Pei Qian remained with his back to the discussion, listening attentively. The colleague's confusion about the business model was exactly what he expected. At that moment, a message arrived on the protagonist's cell phone. An employee questioned the lack of a premium system, assuming that incomplete version was just a test. Without hesitating, the young man typed his definitive answer. He confirmed that this was the final version of the product, ending any hope of changes in monetization. The atmosphere of the narrative changed, transforming the discussion into an imaginary court. Pei Qian and the designer positioned themselves on opposite sides to debate the project's decisions. The designer gestured towards the projection of the nearly empty store. With an ironic smile, he questioned the wisdom of keeping only one cheap item for sale. On the other side of the pulpit, Pei Qian maintained a relaxed posture. The smile on his face indicated that he was ready to defend his sabotage strategy. The artist, however, became agitated and demanded a logical explanation. He couldn't accept that the team's entire effort was being wasted for such a low fixed price. The protagonist calmly consulted his notes. He began to fabricate an elaborate justification for the pricing strategy, trying to make his decisions seem visionary. Still skeptical about the profit, the designer shifted the focus to marketing. He looked worriedly at the boss, asking about the game's promotion plans. Pei Qian turned his back, feeling the nervousness, but kept his decision firm. He declared that there would be no publicity campaign, leaving the other incredulous with the answer. Pei Qian remained at his desk, with his face resting on his hand. Time seemed to drag on as he awaited the unfolding of his plan. His eyes, though calm, hid the expectation of calculated failure. He reflected on the silence that should follow the launch. Elsewhere, Ruan Guangjian checked his phone. Anxious colleagues were sending messages asking about the situation and Boss Pei's stance. The designer was overcome by a wave of energy and urgency. He interpreted the situation as a call to act immediately in defense of the project. His mind went back to the recent dinner. Ruan Guangjian had stood up before the group to explain his reading of Pei Qian's attitudes. He argued seriously that, although the boss had paid a fair price, his actions demonstrated something far superior to a simple business transaction. Meanwhile, the protagonist just drank from his glass, with his eyes closed, without imagining that his silence was being misinterpreted as virtue. Ruan Guangjian continued his passionate speech. For him, Pei Qian was a man of unwavering integrity, and this righteousness was the reason for his strange choices. Contagious with the designer's admiration, the other members of the table immediately proposed to help promote the game, contradicting the boss's secret desire. A hand struck the table firmly. The tacit agreement between them was sealed right there, transforming admiration into concrete action. Ruan Guangjian clenched his fist, feeling motivated. He was determined to do justice to the effort he believed he had witnessed. Back in the present, the designer began typing rapidly on his cell phone, mobilizing his contacts to start the unsolicited support campaign. Night fell over the city, and the lights of the buildings shone in the darkness, marking the passage of hours after the launch. In the dormitory, Ma Yang stared at the monitor with a desolate expression. He questioned Pei Qian if the game was really trash, given the total lack of public interest. The friend threw his body back in the chair, exhausted and disappointed. The numbers on the screen showed only a few downloads, indicating an apparent failure. Ma Yang's attention was diverted from the screen when he felt a touch on his shoulder. The student looked up, surprised by the sudden interruption. Pei Qian watched his friend with a serene and confident smile. The protagonist seemed to be in a great mood, certain that his plan was running perfectly. Turning back to the computer, Ma Yang frowned, tense. He seemed to be processing complex or unexpected information that was appearing on the monitor in front of him. Pei Qian calmly opened his bottle of water. He scorned the passage of time, convinced that the game would be completely ignored by the public, no matter how much time passed. However, Ma Yang interrupted the silence with shouts of euphoria. He announced that downloads had skyrocketed and that a crowd of people were leaving positive reviews. The shock was physical and immediate. Pei Qian spat out all the water he was drinking, caught completely off guard by the news that should have been impossible. Still stunned and wet, the young man stared at his friend with total disbelief. He demanded that Ma Yang repeat what he had said, refusing to believe it. The screen confirmed Pei Qian's worst nightmare. There were over 1,000 player reviews, and the game's average rating shone with 5 perfect stars. The comments were disastrous for his plans. Players praised the developer's ethics and defended the one-time price, interpreting the lack of microtransactions as incredible generosity. Pei Qian's soul seemed to leave his body. While Ma Yang called him repeatedly, the protagonist remained paralyzed, with the empty gaze of someone who sees their dreams crumble. The young man felt a sharp pain in his chest and began to cough, leaning on the table. The unexpected success of the game caused him real physical suffering. Unable to bear the reality, Pei Qian collapsed on the dormitory bed. He hid under the pillow, questioning where his foolproof plan had gone wrong. Ma Yang, oblivious to his friend's despair, continued trying to get his attention. He gestured animatedly, not understanding why success was causing such a reaction. Pei Qian slowly turned his face, displaying an expression of absolute defeat. He looked at his colleague with lifeless eyes, completely drained by the situation. The friend celebrated enthusiastically, believing that the days of suffering were over and wealth was guaranteed. For Pei Qian, buried in the bed, that sounded like a tragic sentence. Pei Qian forced a smile, though despair was evident in his eyes. The supposed joy over the success was just a mask for his inner anguish. However, regretting what happened wouldn't change the situation. The young man realized that crying over spilled milk was useless now. He needed to act. With abrupt movements, Pei Qian pulled his equipment closer, determined to investigate the cause of the problem. The protagonist fixed his attention on the screen. There was an urgent need to understand the root of that positive financial disaster. His mind worked fast as he searched for the breaking point. He needed to discover where exactly his foolproof bankruptcy plan had failed. Suddenly, something on the screen captured his full attention. The revelation lit up his face with a mixture of shock and disbelief. His fingers flew across the keyboard. He needed to confirm the suspicion that had just arisen before his eyes. The answer was in an online post. Ruan Guangjian had released incredible concept art, crediting and promoting the game voluntarily. The name hit Pei Qian like lightning. The realization of who was truly to blame for the success left him stunned. He stared at the computer, trembling with frustration. The artist who was only supposed to do the basic work had boosted the project to stratospheric levels. The young man leaned back, feeling the weight of the irony. The excessive competence of his contractor had been his downfall. With a mental thank you loaded with sarcasm and anger, Pei Qian accepted the blow. The well-intentioned help had destroyed his strategy. Time passed slowly. A week later, Pei Qian found himself on the balcony, awaiting the inevitable moment of reckoning. He looked at the sky, resigned. The financial cycle was about to close, and the system would dictate the final result of his efforts. The blue interface appeared, displaying the cruel numbers. The system fund's huge profit resulted in an insignificant personal gain due to the conversion rate for success. Pei Qian stared at the wall, desolate. The game covered the costs and profited 200,000 in a week, but his conversion to personal wealth yielded a meager 2,000 yuan. The frustration overflowed into tears of despair. The project's financial success was, paradoxically, a torment that no one else could understand. The system presented the rules for the next cycle. The fund would be replenished periodically, but there was a condition. If the capital exceeded the target, no additional value would be injected. Pei Qian began to calculate frantically. With the next settlement in 3 months, and an estimated profit of 6 million. He needed to spend everything on expensive rentals and hires. He continued to list the expenses on his fingers. High-end equipment and high operating costs would be essential to drain all the accumulated capital. A sudden touch on his shoulder interrupted his strategic financial calculations. Ma Yang appeared radiant, suggesting they celebrate with a luxurious meal, completely oblivious to his friend's inner anguish. Pei Qian agreed, remembering an old promise. He had guaranteed that he would take his friend to an all-you-can-eat buffet as soon as they managed to earn money. As they went down the stairs, Ma Yang found his partner's behavior strange. Despite the game's triumph, Pei Qian seemed worried and distant, carrying an invisible weight. The protagonist quickly disguised it with a smile and a nod. He claimed that the tiredness and distraction were just reflections of the rush of the last few days with the game. Ma Yang then suggested a practical solution to relieve the stress. Hire an assistant to take over all the company's workload. The friend envisioned an ideal scenario where the secretary would take care of all the tasks, leaving the boss free from work worries. The suggestion made Pei Qian's eyes widen. The phrase echoed in his mind, revealing an opportunity he hadn't considered before. A brilliant idea instantly ignited in his consciousness. The solution to his excess profit problems had just emerged. He made his decision with renewed enthusiasm. He would hire an assistant, yes, but with the strategic goal of helping him spend the company's money as quickly as possible. The idea hit Pei Qian with full force. He realized that he urgently needed an assistant, and it couldn't be just anyone. The situation demanded a true professional. With the right help, he would have someone to facilitate his spending. He imagined that an assistant would take care of renting an expensive office, hiring employees, and buying high-end equipment, accelerating the depletion of capital. Decided, the young man immediately went to an elite headhunting firm. Upon arriving, he made clear his one and main requirement. He wanted the most expensive service available. The company's regional manager promptly appeared to assist him. Apparently, a client with such extravagant demands deserved direct attention from the leadership. Pei Qian greeted the man, maintaining his posture as a serious investor. The manager assured him that their candidates were vetted, disciplined, and possessed impeccable conduct in all aspects. When they sat down to negotiate, the manager inquired about specific qualifications. The protagonist, however, only reiterated his desire for the professional who cost the most money. A stack of resumes was placed on the table. They were the profiles of the elite, handpicked to satisfy the unusual request of that client. Pei Qian began to leaf through the documents carefully. According to the manager, those were the most talented and requested assistants in the entire province. Suddenly, his eyes stopped on a specific profile. Something in those credentials caught his attention. causing him to interrupt the search immediately. The manager noticed the interest and promptly began to explain the professional's background. He described her skills with a confident smile. What Pei Qian heard, however, was surprising. That assistant's reputation went far beyond simple administrative competence. She possessed a remarkable temperament. The manager reported that she was ruthless, having caused the dismissal of a corrupt vice president before voluntarily resigning. She was a professional who did not tolerate failure. That story of aggressive integrity was exactly what Pei Qian wanted. Without hesitating for even a second, he made his choice and enthusiastically approved the candidate. Satisfied with the quick selection, the manager indicated that they were ready to proceed. He made himself available to discuss the final terms of the hiring. Pei Qian raised a finger, assuming a serious posture. He had one final and crucial instruction to ensure that this hiring served his true purposes. Pei Qian smiled contentedly, feeling that everything was going exactly according to his ambitious plans. 3 days later, a new week began under the shadow of the city's towering skyscrapers. A vehicle approached at speed, braking sharply alongside the curb. The sudden maneuver startled nearby pedestrians, who watched the scene with curiosity and astonishment. The driver's door opened, and a high heel touched the asphalt with firmness and elegance. Xin Hailu, the newly hired presidential assistant, emerged imposingly, justifying every penny of her high salary. She walked around the vehicle quickly, maintaining an impeccable professional posture as she headed to the back door. Without hesitation, the assistant reached for the handle, ready to serve her employer. Xin Hailu opened the door and respectfully informed her boss that they had arrived at their destination. Pei Qian observed the structure of Shenhua View. Being the most expensive building in the city, it was the perfect target for his spending. The elevator silently carried them to the upper floors of the elite building. Accompanied by a broker, Pei Qian and his assistant began to inspect the vast corporate space available. The young entrepreneur approached the glass, assessing whether the environment met his criteria for extravagance. The landscape outside was magnificent, offering a privileged view that would certainly cost a fortune. While the broker discussed the terms of the monthly rent, Pei Qian listened attentively, interested only in the high cost. Pei Qian went straight to the point. He needed to know the rental amount immediately, hoping it would be high. The broker responded with a professional smile, gesturing the initial number of the proposal. The young man was terrified for a moment. That value seemed too low for his goals of losing money quickly. However, upon hearing the total cost of 450,000, the CEO relaxed and began to calculate. The broker, in turn, admired the apparent discretion of this rich young man. Pei Qian closed his eyes and let out a sigh. The high price was exactly what he needed to drain his funds. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. The contract would be closed without any hesitation. He decided that he needed to spend as much as possible there. After all, his game, Ghost General, was making a frightening amount of profit, hindering his loss plans. The prospect of draining these unexpected profits with exorbitant expenses left the protagonist radiant. In the empty lobby, Pei Qian began to dictate the office specifications to his new assistant. He raised a finger to emphasize a crucial requirement, while Xin Hailu listened attentively, ready to write down every detail. The office needed to be elegant and expensive. The furniture and decoration should reflect a high standard of cost. In addition, he demanded dual monitors for all employees. He justified the expense by claiming that, in the information age, this was vital for the productivity of a game company. The work environment should also be impeccable, indicating the need for constant maintenance and landscaping services. Pei Qian pointed to an area intended for physical exercise. Investing in the health of the team's body was the perfect excuse to buy expensive equipment. The assistant wrote everything down quickly, committing to prepare the place according to the extravagant requirements. Pei Qian's plan to increase expenses was working. Xin Hailu confirmed the final details with her boss. She needed to ensure that the budget was approved before proceeding. Pei Qian did the mental calculations quickly. The financial situation seemed to be going exactly as he wished. He added up the exorbitant expenses with the rent and office equipment. 1.5 million had already been spent, an excellent start to his loss plans. The next step was to take care of his personal image. They headed to a high-end men's clothing store. The young man began to try on the outfits. The refined fabric and precise cut denoted a superior quality. Even the shoes belonged to a renowned brand. famous for its exclusive customization and high prices. Looking at himself in the mirror, Pei Qian found the brand name strange. He had never heard of that brand before. Xin Hailu promptly explained that it was a luxury fashion house with over 100 years of history. The protagonist adjusted his collar, impressed. The young man smiled with satisfaction. If it was such an exclusive and expensive brand, it would perfectly serve his purposes of spending the company's capital. The assistant detailed the wardrobe strategy. 3 complete outfits. The first would be strictly formal, for meetings with other bosses and award ceremonies. The other 2 outfits would be casual for daily use. Xin Hailu offered to buy the rest later, saving him time. While being measured by the tailor, Pei Qian vibrated internally. The idea of buying 2 sets of each type meant doubling the expenses. He agreed immediately, closing his eyes with satisfaction. Leaving the shopping in Xin Hailu's hands was a guarantee that the money would be spent without saving. The reflection in the mirror showed a new posture. The tailored suit was beginning to visually transform the student into an executive. Observing the team working around him, Pei Qian recognized the value of that service. This was the height of professionalism and cost that he sought. The sun was beginning to set on the horizon as the vehicle crossed the bridge, leaving the city center behind. The spending journey of that day was coming to an end. In the back seat, Pei Qian took advantage of the journey to review the list of acquisitions for the office. The assistant drove the car calmly, allowing him to analyze the numbers. The list was music to his ears. Expensive decorative trees, luxury sofas, and pure silver tea sets. Each exorbitant item represented more company capital being drained successfully. Xin Hailu, always attentive, turned briefly to comment on the itinerary. Her efficiency in fulfilling the boss's extravagant orders was remarkable. The car finally stopped in front of an imposing entrance. The assistant announced the arrival at the destination, concluding the executive's transportation. The young man looked out the window, assessing the location. The structure seemed adequate for the new standard of living he was building at the system's expense. Before the farewell, there was an important delivery. Xin Hailu handed him the items that symbolized his new residential and financial autonomy. Pei Qian analyzed the contents with satisfaction. As he had calculated, the system did not issue any alerts. The designer clothes and expensive rent were accepted as valid expenses to maintain the boss's image. With the confirmation that his loophole in the rules had worked, he agreed to the final details. The strategy of converting company funds into personal benefits had been a success. Xin Hailu maintained her professionalism until the end, saying goodbye with the promise of being available for future company needs. Her smile ended the business meeting. For the assistant, everything seemed like a serious corporate investment. She did not suspect her boss's true intentions. Pei Qian remained on the sidewalk, watching the car drive away and disappear into traffic. Now, he was alone to plan the next phase. As he walked, the protagonist's focus shifted from material goods to human resources. With the office and personal image resolved, there remained the problem of who would work for him. The choice of team would require surgical care. He needed employees who were not competent enough to generate profit, but who were also not so useless as to prevent the project from existing. It was a delicate and dangerous balance. Pei Qian delved into deep reflection, trying to define the exact profile of person who would help him fail successfully. Pei Qian pondered carefully about his next step. For his plan to lose money to work, the choice of team was crucial. The young man walked through the campus as the sun set. He knew exactly where to look for the kind of special talent his company needed. He stopped in front of the men's dormitory. Pei Qian was looking for someone with a very specific reputation, someone who did not adapt to academic norms. Upon entering the premises, the protagonist looked for signs of a student who failed in several subjects and lived only to play games. Suddenly, a smile lit up his face. He had found exactly the profile he imagined. There was the target, a legendary figure in the dorms known as Brother Autumn Pants, famous for his obsessive dedication to gaming. The boy was completely absorbed in the screen, ignoring the outside world. His tired posture denoted uninterrupted hours of gaming. Pei Qian approached silently and stopped behind the gamer's chair, observing the chaotic environment. The player noticed the strange presence behind him and turned around, interrupting his session. Pointing to himself, the boy questioned the visitor's intention. He seemed surprised that someone was looking specifically for him. Pei Qian maintained his cordial smile and made his proposal immediately. He needed to know if the boy was willing to accept the job. The protagonist knew that skill in games did not translate into business competence. It was exactly this gap that he intended to exploit. The gamer, however, remained impassive, staring at Pei Qian with distrust and little enthusiasm. To dispel any doubt, Pei Qian slammed a thick wad of money directly on the table, next to the keyboard. The boy's indifference disappeared instantly. He stared at the bills, completely shocked by the tangible offer before him. XML. The student was stunned by the sudden interruption. The stranger's imposing and direct presence caught him completely off guard in his own space. Pei Qian wasted no time and pointed to the computer screen. He highlighted that the young man's dedication to games was exactly the qualification the company was looking for. The young man listened to the job description in disbelief. His only responsibility would be to test games, find flaws, and give opinions on the design, a position that seemed tailor-made for him. Sitting comfortably, Pei Qian reinforced the proposal with a confident smile. He knew that offer was irresistible and awaited the new recruit's confirmation. The young man lowered his head, unable to face his benefactor. The reality of that opportunity began to weigh on him, mixing disbelief and a profound emotion. Pei Qian touched the new hire's shoulder firmly. He ordered that the money be used immediately to improve his personal appearance, demanding a shower and new clothes. With his mission accomplished, the protagonist walked away towards the exit. He waved briefly, leaving the dormitory bathed in sunlight as he departed. Alone, the student reached out a trembling hand. His fingers touched the bills on the table, physically confirming that it wasn't a dream. Tears streamed from his eyes uncontrollably. Holding the money tightly, he felt an overwhelming wave of gratitude and relief. He collapsed onto the table, crying copiously. For the first time, someone had valued his passion, transforming what many saw as an addiction into a real opportunity.